Hello and welcome to another special edition of the SportsHeads on Verge Magazine. I'm here with usual suspect Sam Morgan, and we've got a special guest with us on our pre-draft edition of the show. Neil Reynolds, how are you, sir?
Very good. Yeah, thanks for having me on. I enjoy all of these kind of chats now at this time of year. One, because I'm looking forward to the draft, and two, it's just a nice distraction.
So I mean, obviously, speaking to Sam often, obviously, he's keeping me sane from running around after children all the time, and no sports as well, which is like a double punishment as well. But how are you coping? So what's it like for you at the moment?
Yeah, I'm not doing too bad, actually. I'm the old kind of sports cliche, taking it one day at a time. I think if you try and look too far down the road and think, oh, we're all in this for like 12, 16, 18, 20 weeks or whatever, it can be so overwhelming. So literally get up, do my PE with Joe Wicks with the kids, absolute killer. I thought I was reasonably fit, but no, clearly not. Then lot writing in the day. Launched my own podcast now as well, the Neil Reynolds podcast. I've been working on that, been still doing Inside the Huddle, lots of NFL writing and Sky Sports writing, and then I kind of end every day catching 100 passes from my son, who's in the NFL Academy, which has now been suspended.
Really?
So at the moment that's been put on hold, so he needs to get his throwing in. He's a quarterback. It's been, you just kind of get into that kind of routine, but it's been good. You know, we've had like family bingo nights, card nights, quiz nights. I mean, it's kind of forced family time, but it's actually been. That sounds really bad, doesn't it?
I'll tell you what. Sometimes my family listen to what I'm saying on here, and they're like, "Oh, really? You're trapped, are you?" Yeah.
But you know, it's good. I had a couple of it helps when you had a couple of really busy weeks around free agency. And then I'm obviously now building up to the draft. So those busy weeks help as well, because then the time kind of flies. So yeah, I'm doing all right. Thank you.
That free agency window has been pretty impressive, and yeah, like you said, couldn't have come at a better time, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is what the NFL serves up so much drama all the time. You had the whole Tom Brady stuff, and that kind of came about probably about 3 or 4 days after I'd been out and spent some time with Bruce Arians. So I'd interviewed Bruce Arians, and it was really interesting to see what he did after that, and going and signing Tom Brady. And then, as just last night, I'm sitting there watching the TV, and everyone's like, Gronk's back. I'm like, what? What are we doing? The NFL never fails to surprise, and that's why it's such a soap opera. I mean, I put on Twitter last night, nothing surprises me anymore. Literally nothing. Andrew Luck will be back in. Yeah. I mean, look at last year. The year started with Andrew Luck retiring and ended with Marshawn Lynch unretiring. I mean, you would not put money on that. So
that's mental. Yeah.
I'm gonna read this out to you. I just want to see what you because this is like literally got our descriptive questions that we're going to ask, and it's literally like kind of messed them up with last night's news. So I'm going to read this out to you. I want to see your face when I read out these names. Tom Brady, OJ Howard, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and now Rob Gronkowski. I always pronounce his name wrong. What say you, sir, about the potential now Super Bowl champions?
So I think that's a bit much to say Super Bowl champions, but I get where the excitement is, and I am excited for the Bucs. I actually felt like Tampa Bay were going to be a team to be reckoned with this year anyway. I thought if they sorted their quarterback position out, you look at Jameis last year, 30 interceptions. And I saw this video that was doing the rounds on social media, 21 dropped passes by defenders. The guy could have thrown 50 picks last year. And, if you tidy that up, and now you've got Brady, I think Brady will remind us that last year was more about the weapons that weren't around him. And it's just fun to have these kind of teams that we get excited about in the off season. I think they're a playoff team. Be tough to get to the Super Bowl out of the NFC, but very, very well coached. Bruce Arians always turns out competitive teams. Brady can still distribute the ball, and he's now got people to give it to. I'm excited about the Bucs. I really am.
I would say that they are a win now team. So obviously because of the age, and obviously we don't know how Gronk. I'm actually quite surprised because obviously he was so adamant last year. Gronk was saying he's not going to come back because his body is hurting him. He's injured all the time. He's enjoying his life. He seemed like playing obviously at such a high competitive standard all the time actually took its toll on him mentally. So I was quite surprised that I thought that he kind of settled with, I'm retired, I'm out, and now he's back again.
Yeah, I think actually it's a little bit of an indictment on the Patriots. I think, and I've heard this from people that have been in that organization, and I know that reporters outside of the Patriots who are in the US better connected than I am, but I've been around people that have been in that organization, played in that organization, coached in that organization. They kind of suck the fun out of it. Because they hit reset as soon as the Super Bowl has been won. They hit reset and then they go again. So I think Gronk wanted just wanted a break. I think he wanted a break, wanted a fresh start, and that was the way he could get it. Andre, I'm loving your mug, by the way. They've got to let us finish this season, right? We can't.
I have to. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Another Liverpool fan.
Yeah, after 30 years. Do you know what? It'll be typical. It'll be typical our luck. 30 years. And why aren't we going to win it this year? Oh, I know. A global pandemic out of the blue. Brilliant.
No. Not even this is going to stop. This is all planned by Arsenal fans.
No. No. I'm looking forward to it. And even if you're handed the title, there's going to be a big asterisk next to it.
Yep.
We'll still celebrate regardless.
Hey, Sam, I've got a place for that asterisk if you want it. I'm
a bitter Arsenal fan at the moment, so I'm not going to say too much about that.
You had your night at Anfield years ago when I was a teenager, crying the night away.
Oh my God! Honestly, literally, just before we go on about obviously, because before.
Sorry, I've taken us off track, haven't I?
No, because this happens all the time. Like we were in middle of the Raiders practice or something like that, and then we start arguing about Arsenal versus Liverpool all the time. So it doesn't matter where we are. No, I remember literally watching that game, the Arsenal, Liverpool Arsenal game, and when McMahon was holding up 2 minutes to go, and I remember just being like, yeah, and I was only a little kid.
Yeah.
And that's the first time I actually faced heartbreak. Maybe that, and then when we lost the FA Cup to Wimbledon, like that really got me there.
Yeah, my mum told me straight after that, "Don't worry about it. It's only a game." Oh, God bless her. Oh, good. Anyway, took us off track there.
I was going to say, talking of barren teams, and you can see my Cardinals hat on my head. But playoffs, who do you sort of see as a dark horse making it this year?
So I think there's a couple of teams that can go from being sort of struggling to playoff team. So I think Bucks were not really struggling, but they were 7-9 last year. I do think they're in the mix. I wrote about this a few weeks ago. I think Miami could be considered, and I do think Arizona. I think if you can upgrade the defense and be interested to see what they do in the draft. I know they need help on the offensive line as well, but if they get some good defensive help, I mean, it was a defense that gave up 402 yards per game or something last year, worst in the NFL. So, I do think Kyler Murray's the real deal. It was a real statement of intent to go and get DeAndre Hopkins. So, I think that the problem is it's a tough division. So, but every year, one team goes from worst to first in a division. Now, I think it's going to be hard for the Cardinals to do that, but I do think they are a playoff contender now, given if they make some good moves in the draft as well.
Yep,
I think there's a bit of a homer pick there with Miami there. I saw how you sneaked that one in.
Yeah, well,
any opportunity.
It's kind of therapy for me, and I'm playing to the home crowd. I'm playing to Sam as well, playing the Cardinals. Yeah. Neither team are hoping hell.
Right, so just if we just go back before we start going into what tomorrow's proceedings. So obviously for those who've been living under a rock, you are the face of UK NFL on Sky. So how did you tell us your path? What was your journey to becoming where you are now?
So I was a fan like everyone else, really. Started in the mid 80s. My dad was watching it all the time. My dad was a big 49ers fan, huge Joe Montana fan. And I was like, I just didn't get it. It's like, why did they just keep running into the middle where all those big bodies are? And he's like, no, you got to really understand this sport. And I was like trying, and I was like 11 or 12 years old. I wasn't that interested. And then he was watching one night, and there was these commentators were making all a fuss about this rookie who was running onto the field to play for the Miami Dolphins. And it was Dan Marino, and he came off the bench, threw a couple of touchdowns in a game where they lost to the Raiders. And I was kind of semi-hooked, and then I really got into it. And that was it really for me. So started working for an old magazine called Gridiron, not the Gridiron that's out now, but Gridiron. Worked for First Down from 91, 92. Doing sort of freelance.
I remember these are blast from the past. These ones.
So 91, 92, I was working kind of freelance. Then I went off and worked for a local newspaper, got qualified as a journalist. Then I worked for First Down full-time from 97 to 2000. Worked in NFL Europe in public relations 2000 to 2006. Got laid off there. So then started doing some other bits and pieces. Ended up on Sky. Did some BBC radio. So actually it was from the time I started writing about the NFL to my first appearance on Sky was 15 years. And actually, when I became full-time on Sky alongside Kevin Cadle in 2011, I'd already covered the sport for 20 years by then. So people always think you just rock up on TV and that's it.
So much, it's a long journey before then.
I've done a lot before then. Yeah. Now, obviously, love my time with Kev and trying to carry it on now. All these few years we've just been without him, but yeah, it's been been covering sport for a long time.
And obviously, go on, Sam.
I was going to say it'd be wrong not to bring Kev up. As obviously got myself and Andre on the map a little bit with the SportsHeads, but obviously we've spoken about it. But could you tell us a little bit about Kev and his energy that he brought? Because obviously we've spoken about it. It'd be nice to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, he had brought energy, but he was also just so cool. He was just such a cool guy and just so kind of laid back. The biggest thing I learned from Kev, and even now, if things go wrong in the studio, I just laugh. I'm not even bothered because you're all sitting at home with your feet up. It's Sunday. It's the end of the weekend. That's the biggest thing I learned from Kev was like, don't take it too serious. I remember early on, I did a show with Kev and he'd got up to go to the toilet and we used to be plugged into the chairs then for here in the gallery. And Kev went to the toilet, came back and forgot to plug himself back in. And this was when we were behind the desk. So Kev used to wear a suit on the top and then jeans and trainers. So he's just stood up, peeling an orange and eating this orange. And they come back into the studio live and my jaw just drops. I'm like, and they kind of cut to me and they went back and Kev was like, sat back down and got on with the show. But afterwards, we just couldn't stop laughing. He wasn't like bothered. He wasn't, and he was a pro. He was a true pro. He did all his prep. He was ready, but he just never took it. He never took it too seriously. And I think that was the greatest thing with him was that it was just so much fun. And, there was a period of time, I would say, I won't name names, but there was a period of time where it felt like everyone at Sky was trying to prove themselves. Oh, I know this person. I know this person in the NFL. I know this person. And one day we're just sitting in the studio and Kev's talking about having a dinner a couple of nights before. He's like, oh, yeah, it was good. Yeah, we had Stevie Wonder around at the crib. We're just like, forget it. No one's competing with that.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah. Done. Kev's just been hanging out with Stevie Wonder. And it was his way of shutting everyone up, I think. Great man. Learned a lot from him. But, again, just don't take it too serious. It's we're watching sport for a living and talking about sport.
Yeah, honestly, we try to make sure we keep our standards up to his level as much as possible. I know he would say you're not nowhere near it, but
none of us are.
I'm trying, Kim. I'm trying. So tomorrow we got our first virtual draft. So this is going to be completely different than we're used to. What's your view about doing it this way? Can you see any potential mishaps? I heard that there was one already.
Yes, so they did the trial, didn't they? Which apparently was described as brutal. One head coach was saying he only had 2 little curves on his Wi-Fi, and the Bengals had a 2.5 minute glitch and delay in their pick. So I think this draft is fascinating on 3 levels. One, it's the draft, so it's always fascinating. We never know what's going to happen. There's wheeling and dealing, players getting traded, all sorts of stuff. So there's that. Mm-hmm. There's a kind of morbid curiosity to see if it's all going to go wrong. And I think people will tune in for that to see it. And then there's just this general nosiness because now we get to see where everyone lives. It's brilliant.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, you know, the one thing I'm going to miss is the war room. Because I really like seeing that, like everyone huddled together, people talking. And then you can see like when someone's not going to actually do anything because everyone's just no one's really talking to each other. But you can see like, especially like the Jones family, the Cowboys, normally they're huddled up, talking.
One of them's on the phone. Yeah,
you can see stuff going on, and you'll be able to know like, oh, these people are going to make a move because obviously you can see activity. Now, this is going to be completely different than anything else we've witnessed.
As one league official, I think, told Peter King a couple of weeks ago in his column, you know, it's going to be a draft like no other, and we'll never see its like again. Hopefully, you know, it's going to be historic, but you don't want to see it every year this way. But I'm curious to see how it plays out. I think it's kind of just all those factors I pointed out. It's going to be really fascinating.
I feel for the boys, obviously, because you probably in your mind there's a bit of a dream, obviously, to play in the NFL, but all part of that process is the draft, and something that they're going to miss out on, which is a shame.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, isn't it? Is that moment where and they work so hard to get there, you know, and they get that, they hear their name called and they're across the stage and they get the hug from the commissioner. That's a lifetime's work by the time they get to that stage. It's not the same, is it? Virtually when you do that,
you zoom background, so they'll be able to change your background.
People through that with money or something.
Yeah, just something. It'll be something like it'll be like, you know,
a bit of money.
1 minute it'll be like, you know, it might be the Dolphins, and then it's changed the virtual background to the Cardinals, and then so I think it's going to be an entertaining one, definitely.
Yeah.
So I mean, who do you think at the moment is going number one? Obviously, we there is suspicions it's going to be. Well, I'll let you answer.
Yeah, no, I think we're all leaning towards Joe Burrow, aren't we? And I think even if it's not the Bengals picking there, somebody else is going to trade up and get Joe Burrow. I don't think the Bengals are going to trade out of that pick. I think it's fairly set at the top. I think it's Joe Burrow there. I think Washington stay put and take Chase Young and just add, you know, best available player. It's at spot number 3 where I think it gets interesting for me, because I think Detroit are kind of open for business, because they can get whatever they want at 5, 6, or 7. And at 5, 6, or 7, you've got Miami, you've got the Chargers, and I'd still say look out for Carolina. I know they've got Teddy Bridgewater, but I'm just wondering if Teddy's there as a kind of stopgap. So I think those teams 5, 6, and 7, they're the ones that are going to be dealing against each other. So I think Detroit will trade back, and I think Miami will try and get up there. Chargers might try and get up there. So I would imagine Detroit are on quite a few Zoom calls today.
Zoom are the most popular. Well, them, Amazon, and I can't think of the other one.
Disney Plus in my house.
Mandalorian. Mandalorian. If you haven't watched that yet, please.
I've watched the first episode. I'm getting to the rest.
It is good.
I'm surprised you haven't just locked the door and just carried on watching it.
Too busy.
He's going to watch it straight after this.
Yeah, exactly.
The Patriots have got about, I think it's 12 or 13 picks now, I think. Obviously, as you said, they've sucked the fun out of it. They hit the reset button. Is this probably the biggest reset button now with no Tom Brady?
Yeah, I think so. I think when you look at, obviously, been 2 decades since they've not had Brady there, no Gronk. Feels like they're starting again in terms of their skill position players. I mean, part of me feels like they're in the market for a quarterback, and are they going to trade up? Normally they trade back and get more picks. But everything I've heard, they really like Jarrett Stidham, you know, and they really might be willing. I mean, that could just be a smokescreen. I mean, we'll find out in 72 hours or whatever. But it feels like they're happy with Stidham. But it absolutely feels like they're starting over. And you can make an argument obviously you've got Belichick, so you never kind of write them off. They have a winning mentality, but I'd put Buffalo ahead of them in terms of their roster. I mean, they're not the dominant force in the AFC East that they've been for the past 2 decades. I really feel like that's going to change now.
I just can't see the plan of what they're doing. Normally you could see, obviously, if they had obviously a backup QB, like, a decent one, that they're grooming. But I just don't see, like, it's weird because if Belichick's not a person who's just going to give up on a season, but it also looks like he is, because, like, who's there? At the moment, Edelman's like, guys, you're just going to leave me here?
It's like, serious?
Like, really? Like, he's probably like refreshing his phone every 2 seconds.
It's like, oh no, I'm not going to Tampa yet. Oh,
so you guys are going to be in the sun and just going to leave me here in the cold?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, all right, cool.
Thanks, Tom. Leave me hanging. I mean, I feel like I feel like they like Stidham a lot more than the rest of us kind of pay attention to. I think, Jarrett Stidham kind of fell last year in the draft. He could have been, by all accounts, a first or second rounder. So he had that kind of talent. I mean, we didn't really see very much of it, obviously, just in the preseason. So, I feel like they could live with that. I just don't feel like there's enough around him. It does really feel like they're kind of starting again. And you're right, Andre. I mean, Belichick doesn't start again. He doesn't go into kind of building projects. He wants to win every year. That's how he is. So I don't feel like there's enough. I think, obviously people talked about Brady being 42 years old and all that last year and a different player. But I mean, that'll change with a young quarterback in there. But is he going to see the field like Brady? And also he's going to realize that they just haven't got a lot. I mean, it's glaring. They've got to address some of their skill position players, and
well, maybe he's waiting for our Giants new head coach who I'm forgetting because I still don't know who he is, for him to get fired, and then maybe he's going to come on home to the Giants and make us great again.
Wishful thinking once again.
There you go.
Look, I've been through it for Liverpool for a long period of time of this whole process. I am not prepared to wait for it. So this is why this is a constant thing on the SportsHeads, where when I realised, which is quite soon, that quite early into the season, that the Giants aren't going to do anything at all to make me proud, then I'll start rocking someone else's stuff, just bandwagon in just for a little while, just so I can keep my interest going.
I mean, that's not your fantasy though. When you play fantasy sports,
we won't get into that.
He's out early.
Joe Judge is, but it's interesting because there's been talk about the Giants, and I know Joe Judge didn't pick Daniel Jones, but surely they can't be looking at another quarterback already.
Apparently they are. Yeah.
That's bonkers.
But I think what there is just on that, I think that they're just looking to dangle that pick in front of someone else to be able to trade up and get an offensive lineman. I'm hoping he's going to do something sensible. Us and him and the Fuzzy Bear Joker, as we got as a GM.
Get him.
Always there with a joke and a twirly tie. So just quickly before Sam's going to ask you something. I've just jumped in there. Just I'll get that look.
See that, yeah.
So, like, how do you? Let's get some predictions from you. I'm going to get you to put your neck on the line now. So, Joe, give me like.
Sorry, you're breaking up. You're breaking up.
Yeah.
I gotta
go. So, give us like 3 things that you think, like 3 teams that you think are most likely to be able to make a move and do something dramatic, if they are.
All right. So I think Miami definitely. Mm-hmm. I think my dark horse for that would be the Panthers, and then I think there's still a possibility that New England trade up, especially if Tua's kind of sitting there at 10 or 12. Do they think about that? So they're 3 for me. Atlanta traditionally like to trade up, but they don't have any kind of. There's not someone that's out there that's such a glaring need that you would do that. So I think you trade up to get the quarterbacks like the Texans did with Watson, like the Chiefs did with Mahomes. I think that's where you're doing it. You trade up to get a quarterback. And so I think the shocking one out of that would be Carolina, because they're going to pay Teddy Bridgewater $20 million this year. But I just don't know whether they're looking at, fresh start, relatively new owner, new head coach, no Cam, no Luke Kuechly. Let's find our face of the franchise to go and, work alongside Christian McCaffrey. So that's just one I have a feeling. I haven't heard anything like that or even seen that written, but there's 3 for you.
I'll take that. And you mentioned probably what's going to come up from me. Cam Newton. How do you see his season? Where do you see him? What's next for him?
So this is the one place that I've been told a few times by sort of X's and O's and football people is that he wouldn't fit in New England. But there's a part of me that, again, going back to Belichick's dad coached at Navy, and there was a lot of running quarterbacks there, and a lot of that was involved in the game. And I think that part of the game has always interested Belichick, but he's never had that. He has the pure pocket passer in Tom Brady. So it's just a part of me that thinks, I wonder what he would think of rolling the dice on Cam Newton. So that's where I'd say that for New England would be an interesting spot for me. I think Cam's in a bit of a spot because he's so charismatic and he's such a leader in terms of taking over a room. He walks into a room, you just see him in his press conferences. He walks into a room and everyone gravitates to him. So he can't have that this year. No one's able to see Cam Newton in the flesh because he can't go on these visits. So I think that's tricky.
Check
for
out
him.
his Insta.
Well, yeah, that might not be the best way to.
Sorry. I tried. I did try to behave. I did.
Yeah, that might not be the best way for Cam Newton to get a job. And actually, I think this is a real problem for Cam. He's such a big character. He's such a big personality. I can't see him holding a clipboard. Do you sign Cam Newton as a backup? It's really hard to do. So I think he's in a bit of a predicament.
I think Cam, he, obviously it's something we say on our podcast all the time. Well, I say anyway, that he is a person that just loves attention. And I think that because he's a diva quarterback, I think that I think personally that the trend for the NFL is moving away from the diva, troublesome people. So if you look at him, Antonio Brown, all of those people that are just going to be like they would have put up with before because obviously they produce on the field, they have this magic. I think that you're more, if you're, especially there's a lot of new head coaches now, you're going to bank on consistency. So I think with Belichick, I can't see it because obviously you imagine him rocking into a press conference with that,
granny scarf,
with the granny scarf and amongst other things that he chooses to do. I just can't see him fitting into that way of doing things there. But I think that someone else like who needs bums on seats, like the Chargers, someone like that who need bums on seats more than anything else because they're not going to do anything else. They probably might need him. So I think I think there's going to be a shock in just like there was last year with the Giants taking Daniel Jones. I think there's going to be something that we didn't even conceive thinking.
There always is. I mean, there always is in every NFL draft. Just you look at the mock drafts, people only get 6, 7, 8 out of 32 correct. That's for a reason. It's hard to predict. The players will go up. There'll be trades. Just going back to your point on Cam, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I remember interviewing Thomas Davis a few years back when he was still with the Panthers, linebacker. And he said it was when we were talking about him overcoming the 3 torn knee ligaments. 3 years he had torn knee ligaments. He came back 3 times. And he said the reason the Panthers kept giving me a chance was because I'm a good person and I was good in the locker room. He said, and the more you're a good person, the more that someone's going to give you a chance. I'm not saying Cam's a bad person, but I'm just saying you're right. Those kind of divas are making teams wonder if it's worth the trouble. Otherwise, why did the New York Giants trade away Odell Beckham? Why are there now rumors that Odell might be moved by the Browns? It seems like Odell's never happy wherever he is, and teams are never happy with him completely as well. So I think, and Antonio Brown's a classic example. I think you're right. I was
just going to ask you one thing just before we move on, because this is something that why I think there's going to be consistent problems in with the Browns is because I just think if you've got a quarterback, then that's your quarterback, and you're supposed to respect him, and he's your leader. But like, he's the person that you kind of look up towards, because obviously they've got the playbooks. They're the person that gives you the ball.
They are your leader.
Yeah,
they are your leader.
That's the franchise. That's the CEO of the field. So what was baffling to me regarding Odell and actually characters like that, when it comes about them more than the team, is that on the field, he comes over to Tom Brady after he's lost. And I've mentioned this for the last few podcasts. He gives because I can't believe it happened, gives some cleats that have a goat hair cleats to Tom Brady in front of his quarterback. And there's a famous picture where you can actually see, his own quarterback actually looking like in disbelief, like, to what's happening.
Yeah.
Like, if you're Baker Mayfield, you're gonna be like, "Are you serious? Like, why are you doing this here?" But Baker Mayfield hasn't got enough, clout to be able to say anything, because he's every time he opens his mouth, he's in enough trouble. This is the type of thing that I think that teams and fans are sick of. I think from a Giants point of view, we've seen this coming. We loved Odell before, but like, we saw this coming, and he seems to be want to be famous more than actual just a football player.
Yeah, and I've talked to Jeff Reinbold about this on our podcast time and time again. I've worked with Odell a few times. I've been with him. I interviewed him in Cleveland last year. I probably interviewed him 10 times. We've done an NFL UK live show together. I've done a lot of stuff with him. I think I know who he is and what he is. And if I talk to him privately and we're not filming something, he talks about how he wants to be great. He wants to be historically great, and he's a nice guy. He's one of the nicest guys you could ever meet. He'll walk in and he'll have a chat with me. And like, we were in Cleveland, and he had to finish off catching drills, and he came over and he hugged me and was like, "I'm really sorry. Do you mind waiting?" I'm like, "It's cool. I'll wait for you whenever." And he went, "I'll be back as soon as I can." And he's a good guy. So I see that. And then the next time I see him, he's slapping a security guy on the backside, handing out fake dollars at the college championship game.
Could you believe that? Like, when you saw that, what was your thoughts?
Well, you're making it about you.
Yeah.
LSU have just won the national title. Yes, you weren't on that team, so it shouldn't be about you. You should not be all the headlines coming out of that game. And that's where I just get frustrated, because he is a really nice guy. He genuinely wants to be great.
Yeah.
But he also wants to be famous.
Yeah.
And then when he's famous, he then complains about being famous, and it's like, no one leaves me alone. And so it's a real, I go back and forth and around and around. But I really like him. He's a good guy, but he does keep getting into headlines for the wrong reasons. That just part of it hasn't gone away. And I always say, once you're, what's he, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, 6 years in the NFL now?
It's a long time.
After a while, you are what you are.
Yeah. You're living off that. Well, I mean, to be honest, if you do that catch in New York, you are the face of the franchise. Like, you are, pretty much every. I think for me, it's when he had Lil Wayne in his interview at ESPN. That it still baffles me and perplexes me, like, why you would do those types of things. Right. This is the type of stuff with him. Antonio Brown, obviously, Antonio Brown. I can't see him ever getting back in the league.
But the Giants kind of encouraged it as well. So the Giants would take down sponsors of their team for pre-game warm-ups. I'll come and stand in this end zone. We can watch Odell one-hand catch it. It became a thing. It became a thing for pre-game to take sponsors and VIPs down, stand them in the end zone, and let them watch Odell catch passes. I mean, they kind of enabled it in a way. So, players like that probably frustrate coaches, and especially that's when they then become on a dangerous footing, because when a new coach comes in, so let's say Kevin Stefanski comes in for the Browns, and he's like, well, I don't know life with Odell Beckham. I'm not going to, am I really going to miss him if I don't have him? Because I've never worked with Odell. So why would I want to go through? So it's interesting. They put themselves into a more precarious footing for a start.
This is why I'm
I think
going
that's
to be
just
wearing.
what teams are doing, though. Teams have got to get that balance right. You see, the best organisations probably get that balance where they make sure that the player is never bigger than the organisation. As you just touched on, the Giants obviously allowed that to happen, where anything to do with the Giants was Odell Beckham. And I think when Barkley came in, I think that was probably a nice opportunity for them to say, actually, hey, we got a new face here, and this guy's going to abide by the rules. So that's probably one of the things they've got to look at. But you say, Cam, Odell, AB himself, any of those guys that go in now, for their own sake, I think need to have the right organisation that are going to keep them grounded. I know it's not going to be easy, but you're going to have to try and get them to just focus on being the best and just concentrate on that part of what you wanted to achieve. Because I think everything else falls in line when you are the best. But if you go far the other way and you find yourselves doing things with security guards and other people's games or out and about, then you dip down the other way and people forget about your talent. Because I don't think now, when people talk about the great wide receivers in the league, I don't think Odell's name comes up immediately. It'll come up, but not immediately.
It's the second part of the conversation now, whereas it wasn't for a few years, and it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. He could be the best of the bunch. Absolutely could be.
So you've been on Sky for a long period of time. Like, we've become accustomed to you being in our front rooms all the time. Now, how do you see the development of the game, regarding fans, like more fans getting involved in it? So what do you think? How's it changing since you've been on TV and so forth?
I think obviously since I've been on TV is coincided with the London games, and it's just taken things to a different level. I mean, it really has. I say this all the time to people in America. I say, our fans know the game the same way you do in LA. The same in London as it is in LA. The same in Manchester as it is in Miami. I really feel that way. I think we're able to hold our own. I think we actually are looked at quite enviously by some franchises. When you look at 40,000 season ticket holders for the games in London and packed stadiums all the time. I mean, until Tom Brady got to Tampa, that was not the way it was in Tampa. That is not the way it is in Miami. Look at Washington last year, how they couldn't fill their stadium and they're selling $6 tickets. So we are a legitimate force now in the NFL landscape. And I think that's been an incredible growth since the first game in 2007. So I think it grows year on year, more opportunities to do various things. I've done a bunch of interviews and stuff this week, and that interest around the draft is there in the off season. I think we now cover the sport and follow the sport as passionately in the same way as they do in America. I would say we're kind of the 33rd NFL market.
And so just lastly, you mentioned that you've got your podcast, because we've got to give that some love. So now you've been working on that.
Crikey, that took 35 minutes to get to that. I was only going to come on for like 3 minutes.
I thought I'd
plug that and disappear.
I thought I'd be nice.
He's going to work for his plug.
make him sweat for this one. Now, tell us about the podcast. Who's been on here, and then obviously where people can find it.
Well, funny you should ask. So let me tell you. Yes, I launched the Neil Reynolds podcast. It was actually before all the coronavirus stuff kind of resulted in various lockdowns and shutdowns of travel. So I went out to Florida. I thought I'll do the first one on site. And what it is I'm very fortunate. Obviously, years and years in the business, I have very good contacts, and I wanted to tell. I don't want to do. We all do the podcast where we react to the news of the day. I do that on Inside the Huddle. You guys can chat about all the news. So I thought, well, I can't go off and do my own one when I already do that with Jeff. So why would I do that? So I wanted to just tell stories. So I just want one guest every episode and just spend quality time with that person and just tell their life story. So they're relatively timeless. They can be dipped into whenever people want to listen to them. So for episode 1, I contacted Brian Fitzpatrick, who I've worked with around the NFL UK live tours. And I said, can I come out and interview you? And he said, no, well, come out and interview me, but let's go fishing as well. So I've never fished in my life. I had no clue what I'm doing, but I actually caught one but I don't like touching fish. So Fitz had to land it. So I was with Fitz on one day. That was episode 1. The next day I went and spent about 40 minutes with Bruce Arians, head coach of the Bucks. So he was episode 2. And then I've got Peter King coming up on April the 30th. And then working my way through a mix of current players, coaches, retired players. So I've already recorded with Brian Baldinger, Dallas Clark, Cliff Averill, some of the Around the NFL podcast guys. Got Lamar Jackson lined up at some point, but then obviously everything kind of locked down. Had a couple of nibbles from Kyle Shanahan, so I'm hoping that one comes off. Got a few requests in around the NFL. So
putting us to shame here.
Well, that's why I'm trying to use the contacts I've got, because you work hard for a number of years. You develop good contacts with the PR guys as well. So that's what I'm trying to do, is get good names that everyone's going to recognize and just tell their one story that week. So it's fortnightly during the off season, and then it'll go weekly during the season.
And so where can we find it?
So it's the Neil Reynolds podcast.
See, I'm doing this promo for you.
Thank you. I know. I probably didn't actually name it after. It's a really imaginative name. Yeah, I thought, let's call it the Neil Reynolds podcast. Maybe it'd do what it says on the tin. Yeah, so wherever you get your podcasts, I guess.
And just your socials as well. So are you an Instagram guy, or are you more Twitter? Or?
I'm more Twitter. So at Neil Reynolds NFL. That's where you'll find me.
I'm just saying that because we're expecting to follow back on Insta and Twitter now. See, he said this down there.
Do I not do that? Okay, go and check. On my to-do list for today. Let's put that down there.
So what's your plans for the? I mean, we've got a minimum of we've got another minimum of 2.5 weeks or 3 weeks or something like that. I'm losing track of what day it is now. So what's your plans in the meantime?
So obviously doing a lot of stuff around the draft now, and then as soon as the draft's done, really the rosters are set. So then I start working on my season preview magazine. So every summer I bring out a preview magazine. I edit it and pretty much write it all myself. So now the rosters will be set after the draft. That'll be me for the next month, really. So again, lots of writing and keep myself sane that way. And lots of catching of passes. I actually caught one on the nose the other day. I don't know if you follow me on Twitter.
Well, see, we're just waiting for
a follow back before you.
Yeah, exactly. We can't put ourselves out there. We're too vulnerable.
So my son's got quite a strong arm, and one of the balls went straight through my hands, and there was claret everywhere. It was not a good
No
sight.
way.
Yeah, all over the AstroTurf. Nightmare.
You see what happens? Idle hands. You see, this is what happens.
Definitely got idle hands.
I was actually going to say, I've seen a few catches though, Neil. So I thought, is he going to get himself back in a vet's side or something?
I think I would only be an end zone target, because I think the runoff. I think 4th and goal from the 1. Stick me in, and I'll catch one off play action somewhere where I don't have to run afterwards, and no hitting.
Thank you so much, honestly, for your time. We really appreciate you taking the time out for me. Obviously, we're long-time friends of Neil and long-time fans of Neil, and we're expecting a visit on a guest appearance on Sky now as well. He promised that before we start recording as well. So we better get our suits ready, Sam. I'll tell you that.
Get your suits on.
100%.
I actually dressed up for you, see? Normally I look like a scruff doll. So guys, if you keep on following us on, obviously, at the SportsHeads for NFL content, and at Verge Magazine, at Verge Mag on Instagram as well. And then we have a new platform at Alternative Sports as well. So we've been busy. We're having more and more platforms for sports for you guys. And we really appreciate your following, your likes and your love and all the comments and so forth. And we're going to we'll get Neil back at some point before this quarantine ends. Because we ain't got a choice. We
can't escape.
I'm locked down. I got dodgy Wi-Fi.
No, we appreciate you. Thank you very much, and appreciate you. I'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Cheers, guys.